I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. To me, this is something that has to change. And when there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand.
We don't think you fight fire with fire, bitch. We think you fight fire with water, bitch. We gonna fight racism, not with racism, but we gonna fight with solidarity.
So, guys, welcome back to Apolitical. We're interviewing Paul Richardson, and a great friend of ours, also our fraternity brother, and he's also the host of the Sports Cave. So, Paul, I'm gonna give yourself a chance to introduce yourself and talk a little about the Sports Cave, and we'll have we'll go and deal deep about sports and politics as well. So, hey, brother, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself and tell what you do in the Sports Cave and everything else.
Cool. Name is Paul Richardson, and I'm with the Sports Cave. We do a radio show every day, 1 o'clock, called The Cave Show. We cover specifically Suns, Diamondbacks, Cardinals, all ASU sports, Mercury, everything in Phoenix, pretty much. And then we also have a national presence because we cover the things down in Miami with the Marlins, and we also do bowl games as they come out here, plus the NBA Summer League in Vegas. So strong presence, been around for a while. I think this is going into year 11. So we've been here for quite a bit of time.
And you had a wide variety of guests on the show. Just name a few that you had over the years that you interviewed as in sports.
I've interviewed Kurt Warner, Kobe, Michael Irvin, locally, because it's too many. I mean, Devin Booker, like everybody that plays for a Phoenix team, I've interviewed. I've interviewed Derrick Rose. I couldn't. I mean, it's crazy because when I stop and think about it, that list actually gets kind of long. I interviewed Le'Veon Bell before it was Le'Veon Bell playing at Michigan State. Wow. So there's a lot of stuff, and then local, like some news people locally, like Rich Signs and the godfather of them all, Bruce Cooper, Jude LaCava, like all them dudes have been either on my show, through my show, or I've interviewed.
What's your favorite interview?
Favorite interview ever was Kobe Bryant. He had his knees in ice about 2 years before he retired, and he was just sitting in the locker room just talking. There was no one was recording, no one was doing interview. It was just talking. And then, like I said, Derrick Rose, kid from the Chi, same. Jabari Parker, another kid from the Chi, same thing. And sports-wise, heck, from stars, like I said, to Kobe, to, if you're a baseball guy, Jim Leyritz, I've done, Zach Crockett, football. I mean, I can't even, like, as I'm sitting here thinking, just the names just keep popping up left and right. But I've hit a lot of people. Fortunately, I've been real fortunate.
The Kobe interview, what really stuck with you when you interviewed him?
He was just, you know what? The biggest stars, honestly, can be the coolest people. Mm-hmm. To be perfectly honest with you, last year, was it last year or the year before? LeBron James did sort of the same thing. He was in his locker, and he was just talking about dudes that played basketball that were legends that didn't necessarily make it to the pros. So he's talking about guys like Ronnie Fields, back in Chicago that never made. I mean, just chill. Those are some of the best ones. And then, like, when I was talking to Jabari Parker and Derrick Rose, just talking. I mean, there's no, there at one point with Jabari, and I'll cheat because I know him, like, outside of just sports. But it's like when you get done talking to him, it was like, all right, I got to turn the mic on now. We good? So those are the best ones. Ronnie Price, that played for the Suns, gave me my first interview ever. Wow. And I'll never forget that in basketball. First guy I've ever interviewed. So those are and Sebastian Telfair was right behind him. So those are the guys that, like, stick out in my mind. So it's been cool, man. It's a lot of fun. And athletes are just, athletes are just people, man. I mean, they know that you got a job to do. And then it's not just men. The women's side, Diana Taurasi is one of the coolest people you'll ever meet. And she's like the greatest women's player to play in the WNBA ever. And she is cool as hell. In fact, I just talked to her yesterday. So she is like, she's cool. I don't know if anyone ever gets a chance, but check out the Sports Cave Instagram. I put up a lot of stuff on there with interviews that, some of them are one-on-one, some of them are the group interviews or you're part of an interview, but I put a lot of that stuff up, man, because I want to share all that with everyone.
Paul, since you've been everywhere, since you talked to a lot of athletes in multiple different leagues, what do you think about The Rock purchasing the XFL? I saw that come up a couple of days ago. He got an investment group or team and basically put in $15 million. What's your thoughts on that?
I think The Rock is rich and had some extra money to spend. The XFL will never see the light of day.
You like 15 million? Yeah, I got that.
To be honest with you, the XFL will never be a viable football league. There will never be a viable football league against the NFL. And people should just give it up. Because the one thing, unlike the USFL back in the day, and I'm old, so I remember the USFL. The USFL actually
that was the Generals.
Herschel Walker.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Herschel Walker, Bobby Hebert, Reggie White. They actually competed against the NFL. So they actually had a draft and they took players that instead of going to the NFL, they came there and they paid them. Right. So, and they were a spring league. Where they screwed up is your boy that's over on 1600 decided that, he led a group that said they wanted to battle the NFL in the fall. And that just didn't. That wasn't going to jump off.
Documentary.
Yeah, but they were a real competitive league. The problem now is everyone is concerned about quarterbacks, and anybody could say what they want. They can spin it however they want. If you don't have name recognition at quarterback, no one's really watching your team except your local market. And in the XFL and in the other league that started the year before that, there were no quarterbacks that were recognizable. And it's nice if you went to ASU and Bino Rich is the running back in the league, and you're like, oh, cool. But you're not going to clear your day to watch. And that's not a knock on them, but no one's going to watch your favorite defensive end from Savannah State play. Nobody's clearing out a day for that, because if he was that good, he'd be in the NFL already. So if there's no name recognition to bring you in, your league will get no TV deals, no one will go to the games. And unless they're willing to pay like a Trevor Lawrence, $40 million a year to say, I'm not going to play in the NFL, I'm going to go here, it's not going to happen. And if the whole league is only worth $15 million, your quarterback might be I ain't got to tell you what your quarterback's going to be worth.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I'm gonna throw a curveball at you though for a second, because you've got now blue chip prospects, considering going to HBCUs. So, and at one time, people would never have thought that would be possible, that you'd have blue chip prospects going to HBCUs. But given this moment, it seems like anything's possible. So would you still say that, given that type of example, that it's virtually impossible for XFL to coexist in a world with the NFL or even compete off season against the NFL?
Every time they try, no one has an appetite for it because there's no one to watch. It's like the NBL. Okay, I'll use a real life. Korean baseball is a good baseball league. Mm-hmm. ESPN was showing that every morning. But I bet you if you walked in the Circle K tomorrow and asked one, hey, did you catch that Korean baseball league? And did you see if the Samsung team won? They got a team named, it's like the Samsung Lions or something. They will look at you like you had like a third eye, because no matter how good it is, there's no name recognition. And people associate with names. I know you've seen a movie that's a really good movie.
Right.
And you're like, man, who? And you started scrolling, you're like, man, I ain't never heard of none of these people. but this movie is good as hell. And then you'll put on a movie with a big name, you'll be like, oh my God, that sucked. But that movie that sucked made like $80 million. That movie that was great and artistic made like 8,000. Because even a bad movie, a star actor will get you to show up. Jiggly sucked, but people watched it because J-Lo and Ben Affleck was in it.
That's true.
Name recognition goes a long ways.
Yeah, good point. And you know, it's a product at the end of the day, right? You got to package it. So that's what it sounds like. You know, if you don't have that product, that marketing, we're going, like you said, the quarterback and name recognition, you're not going to bring in the revenue.
No, and that's what it's always about. It's always about the money.
So let me ask you this. So with the COVID-19, right, and you got this new environment from baseball, football, and the NBA, you know, what do you see, I guess, the future of sports right now? Because, you know, you have the NBA in a Wakanda bubble, basically. Let's just call it like it is, right? Because a bunch of brothers in a bubble playing ball all day, right? you got the Major League Baseball. You know, they're catching COVID-19 like, you know, like it's a rash. Oh, hold up, I got sunburn. Let me go ahead. Damn, it's COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, they sound like that.
Right.
Why do they sound like they sing old Negro spirituals when you say, oh, I got COVID-19? When you come down with COVID-19, do you also come down with old Negro spiritual voice?
Wow.
Well, I'm just being honest. Like, you know, it's what's the future of it? Because they're starting up these leagues,
right,
and you know they're gonna get somewhat infected. I mean, in the NFL, they haven't even started yet, and that sport's more contact than anything. Sure. So, like, what do you see, or what have you heard of, like, what's the direction in sports in general? I mean, for moving forward in this new now.
Well, the NBA and the WNBA and the NHL, they got it right, to be perfectly honest with you. The NBA and the WNBA put everyone in a bubble, and they gave enough time. So if you came with some type of COVID, whatever, that by the time you're cured, you're only going to be around people that don't have it. And so the chances of you getting it from people that don't have it are really good that you're not going to get it. So that's the way the WNBA and the NBA did. Hockey did something really similar. They put all them cats in Canada. They can only go from the hotel to the ice to the hotel. That's it. Nothing else. Baseball is different. Baseball battled too much with each other. The owners and the players and the amount of games and the amount of money and the amount of revenue. And you got to remember something about baseball. Not every owner is, I'm going to say this in a way and then I'm going to explain it. Not every owner is the same rich in baseball. So Yankees baseball owners are ridiculously rich. Dodgers, Cubs, ridiculously rich. Marlins, Pirates, Orioles, they're rich to us, but they're not baseball rich. So for the Marlins who barely draw a crowd, if they would have found a way to play 120 games without fans, their revenue would not have been good because they already don't have enough fans as it is. And they're going to be paying players, staff, and everything else to fulfill a 120 game schedule with no $9 hot dog, $40 parking, and $13 beers. That's a lot of revenue to lose. So they actually would have basically hustled backwards. So I think teams like that really didn't want a long season anyway. Financially, it wouldn't have made no sense. When you get down to 60 games, since they really couldn't get together to do some type of bubble, or as I like to say, potting, putting teams in areas where they have two stadiums like the Bay Area, Chicago, New York, LA, since they really didn't want to do that, they really just trusted players to be on their best behaviors. Well, if you have a team like New York and a team like LA and a team like the Cubs in big markets that have an interest in winning, their players are going to follow the rules. If you get a team like a Miami, and I'm not trying to dog on them, but deep down in their heart, they know they suck. They know they're not going to go anywhere. They're trying to collect their check, but at the same time have a little bit of fun. But what they're doing is they're ruining it for everybody else. They're old boy in the suit that farted a lot at house party, that fell asleep in the middle of the set. They're that dude. So the thing is, their clubhouse isn't strong enough to keep everything in order. And I'm going to contradict myself, and I said this on my show earlier. Baseball is not going to finish because of COVID, but baseball is going to finish because financially it needs to finish. So that's gonna be the big joker, that financially baseball's not gonna stop. Notice the Yankees aren't sick, the Cubs aren't sick, and the Dodgers aren't sick. If baseball comes down to the end, and you can have the Dodgers and the Yankees, and everybody else catch COVID, but they're playing each other in the World Series. Oh, but damn, we're real sorry for the rest of y'all. But we got the Dodgers and the Yankees, and unfortunately, that would trump everything, because that's money, man. It always boils down to money. But in the future, people are going to try to get it back to as quote unquote normal as possible. What that looks like for the NBA, we'll see come December, when the season is supposed to restart, December, January. We'll see what football. A lot of guys opted out, so we'll see what happens with football, and see if they can make it through 17 weeks plus the playoffs, plus the Super Bowl, which I really got to see this Houdini trick. But you can do smart things and be smart about getting COVID. It's not the people that are smart. It's the people that are idiots that are infecting the people that are trying to be smart. You know, there are a lot of, hey, those were some good wings, man. Those lemon pepper wings are off the chain. But here's how basketball is different. He did that, and they said to him, no. You're gonna come back in, and you're gonna self-isolate from everyone for 10 days in our system, and you won't be able to do anything else. And he did that. Today was the first day that he played since that happened. In baseball, they're not doing that because there's no bubble to self-isolate in. It's go isolate in your house by yourself. There's a difference. And so that's where I think it's going to be more of an issue, because if a player in baseball goes to a gentleman's club tonight after the game, Houston just played the Diamondbacks. If they want to go to a gentleman's club tonight, they're going to go to the gentleman's club, go home, and show back up at the park tomorrow. In the NBA, you're showing back up. They have eyes everywhere. Your butt's going back in quarantine.
Yeah.
So
hold on. So Charles Barkley made a statement. He was like, someone's going to sneak someone in that bubble. Charles Barkley said something's going to happen. You can't have all these athletes bottled up on this long period of time without any interference.
You're talking about the celibate bubble. So, yeah. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something right now, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. If I'm playing for the Clippers or the Lakers or the Raptors or a team that has a real opportunity to win, and there is nothing coming between me and my money. And if that means I have to be celibate for 90 days to get my ring and get my money, I'm going to get my ring and get my money.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, the NBA has a snitch line, and that line has been dialed. So don't call that line. So,
didn't they get Dwight Howard? They got Dwight Howard, didn't they?
They got Dwight Howard.
Yeah, they did get Dwight.
They got Rashawn Holmes. They got Rashawn Holmes for getting some Grubhub. And if they call you on Grubhub, let me tell you something. There is nothing more jealous than a dude that ain't getting none and a dude next door is. So someone will rat someone out.
Right. You're right.
But
that's true. That's his own police network. It's his own police. What? He got what?
But
man.
That's a great question. But
I'm gonna drop a dime on that fool.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna drop a dime on that fool.
You sound like my man. Mm-hmm. Just eating that banana away. Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, that's a great question. But no one knows, because no one knows about COVID. So in the perfect world, everything comes back next year. But nobody knows. Now, we may have COVID 20 by next year.
Right. And I mean, it's funny that you say that, because I think we're seeing a lot of, and I think particularly with the NFL, players are making decisions for their own selves as their own business, saying that they're trying to opt out, right? Opt out of playing. And it's interesting because some of the players that are opting out, you know, they got big contracts. They don't have to worry about anything. But at the same time, the league itself is still moving forward. And even as recent as I think yesterday or the day before, Odell Beckham comes out and says, you know, he doesn't think there should be an NFL season. Like, what do you think about that in terms of athletes themselves kind of taking more control of their own person and their business, so to speak? And I think particularly Black athletes, you know, seeing themselves as their own business and assuming more control.
Okay, we got to separate all the sports based on one thing. Football has non-guaranteed contracts. Very important, 3 words, non-guaranteed contracts. Basketball players can put a certain amount of pressure on owners because they have guaranteed contracts. And the owners can push back. And that's why they're in this bubble right now. Because something that they agreed on together, that way, the NBA is different because the NBA is more like, well, I don't get in trouble for saying this one. NBA is like going to a party and there's weed. Everybody shares their weed. They just pass it around. The owners and the players are like, look, if we work out something, we all going to get paid. We're all going to look good. And we'll all come out of this smelling great. We have guaranteed money coming to us. Y'all want y'all money? Let's just do this. Let's go hand in hand. Most of the players that opted out of the bubble opted out for real personal reasons on teams that had a real opportunity to win. Teams that weren't going to win anyway. And people are real with themselves at this point. They just opted out because they're like, we're not going to make the playoffs. And if we do, we're going to eliminate in the first round. And to me, risk reward ain't enough. Baseball has a strong union and their money is guaranteed. You see them playing. You see them kind of acting a fool. Football's not guaranteed money.
Right.
So if you are Odell Beckham and you're Patrick Mahomes, Watson, Aaron Rodgers, you got a little weight. You can say certain things. J.J. Watt, I want to make sure it's safe. But J.J. Watt's playing football, right?
Right.
So they can say certain things. You let a kick returner who makes $900,000 a year talk about, I don't want to play because I don't feel it's safe. You are cut, and we just found a kick returner that makes $400,000 a year, and we just saved $500,000 towards our cap.
Wow.
It's a whole different thing. It's
Right.
a whole different set of ways. So I want you to think about and look at the players that are speaking up. The players that are speaking up have made money, and they're superstars. You don't hear the Cincinnati Bengals second string guard talking about, I don't feel good. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Because if you've made your money, you can opt out. Look at the players that are playing for the Patriots that opted out. Most of them, not all of them, they got a little money in the bank. So if they want to come back next year, they're good. You don't see a second-year guy that made $400,000 last year saying, I'm opting out. Because it's not like what else is he going to do?
Right.
It's a pandemic. There's no other job to just go get. Right. So they're going to take that chance and they're going to play because it's non-guaranteed money.
Now, just to follow up on that, do you think that in this moment in time of like Black Lives Matter and, you know, a lot of athletes looking to use their platform for social justice, do you think in some ways that this is kind of galvanizing them and looking at what they own in terms of their brand, and then also exploring how it is that they look at themselves in relationship to the Black community and being like some type of catalyst for change beyond just this social justice moment? Or do you think it's just this social justice moment and then that's it?
I think there are some athletes that are going to do stuff with or without Black Lives Matter on the court, with or without Breonna Taylor's name on the back of their jersey.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of people that are going to do a lot of good things. Kyrie Irving has donated a lot of money that people haven't even known about. It just came out about a week ago. He actually supplemented some of the WNBA players. He threw in I think it was $1.8 million to help those that wanted to opt out for health reasons, to help them get their bills paid. So there's a lot of guys that are going to do stuff. There's a lot of guys that are going to put on, like anything else, they're going to put on the jersey and put, unity and equity on the back of their jersey because it looks good. They don't want to be the guy that don't do it. They're going to kneel when everyone else kneels. They're going to say all the right things, but then they're not really going to do anything. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think those that have used a platform in the past will continue to use a platform. But I also think there's a lot of things that are different too. I think gone are the days, to some extent, are the 60s, in that there was oppression. What we call oppression for what those cats went through in the 60s, it ain't even close.
Right.
So
Close,
when
right.
Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and all them cats are sitting down telling you, look, we can't even go to this city and stay at the same hotel, or we can't go into the restaurant with our teammates. These are things we can't do. That's a whole nother level. And I think some guys, and it's not no fault of anyone, but it's different when you haven't had that treatment, especially if you're a basketball player. You weren't told no in high school when you were an All-American. You weren't told no in college when you were a one and done. And you damn sure weren't told no if you made it to the NBA and you made a lot of money. So everything that you're doing because of something that you want to do. You're an outspoken person. And it wouldn't have took COVID or what happened with George Floyd to have you speak up. Those that wanted to speak up were speaking up. Those that look, every player almost knelt except a couple. Right. Does that make the two that didn't kneel any less willing to do stuff? No. Did it mean that everyone that did kneel is out there really doing something? No. Point. So you have to look at what their platform, what their story is, and what are the works, the works that they're truly doing. So I think it helps. I think it's going to push some people in some ways. And a lot of people are going to speak up and have good voices. But then we kind of talked about this before. Colin Kaepernick isn't a leader. He was conveying a message. He was saying, look, I think this is unfair. But he wasn't a leader. Right. So there are going to be guys that can convey a message. We think this is unfair. But I'm going to ask you guys a question. Yeah. Do you think that at this point we know what the situation is with social justice? We've seen with George Floyd, we've seen Breonna Taylor, we've seen a lot of the things that are happening. Do you really think that because a player kneels now, he's kneeling to show solidarity, or he's kneeling to make a true change? Because does kneeling actually truly make a change? Or are the works really the change? You see what I'm saying?
You just took it to the pulpit, to the Christian church, faith versus works, right?
Yeah.
The faith of Black Lives Matter, and then the works of Black Lives Matter, and really trying to demonstrate taking us from where we are right now to a place where we have social and political power and economic power to be able to fend off a lot of the issues that we're seeing. So I think to what you're saying is it remains to be seen at best, right? Because it's more of the symbolic, and then now it's what comes after that, right? And I think in so many ways, we've only lent a critical eye to who's kneeling, and not as much of a critical eye to who's doing the things that will really have an impact, and beyond just the things that we know that they've done with regards to, like, different, cancer walks, or, school drives where they're getting books for kids. This day and age, the work that you do in terms of elevation is really, you can't just, give out turkeys during Thanksgiving, right? We've all seen folks who do the thing that just gives the appearance of community service. And I think community service, given what we've seen take place with our community, Like you got to take it to a whole nother level. It's got to be the graduate degree of community service in terms of how do I make sure that I'm planting a seed for change versus the photo op that looks like change. And that remains to be seen.
And I'll tell you something. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Myron.
No, I'm gonna say no. And just to add what Brian said, there has to be equilibrium, right, to this situation. You do have people that promote Black Lives Matter, but when the promotion is done and when all the cameras turned off, what's the real benefit for Black Lives Matter? It is the work. So, for instance, LeBron James, right? He's a little bit of both. He's promoting Black Lives Matter through the NBA and even outside the NBA, but then he's doing a lot of work working with former felons to make sure they get registered to vote. So you have to have that balance of both. You know, like you said, you have some people may not be doing a lot of things that we don't hear about, which we need to hear about.
Right.
And you have a lot of people that, oh, Black Lives Matter. Yeah. You know, my biggest thing is right now is Black Lives Matter. Is it a media tagline for promotions for companies and organizations? Because think about it. 5 or 10 years ago, you never see a company say Black Lives Matter on their media page or their products, their services. You know, Starbucks, Black Lives Matter. You know, Nike, Black Lives Matter. Everybody. So to me, it's like, okay, that's great. But what are you doing as an organization? What are you doing as an individual? What are you doing as an entity to make sure change happens? Mm. And this is where it gets a little gray, but you have to have both. You have to promote it and you have to put the work into it.
Yeah. See, I think that's where it becomes a fine line, because sometimes just because my great grandmother used to tell me this all the time. Sometimes you even got to give the devil his due, because as we all know, a clock is right twice a day. So just because an asshole says something, sorry about that, doesn't mean that it's not necessarily the truth. Some things I think I'd like to see, and I don't really care who says the message, as a community, we may need to do more than just buying some backpacks and putting some books in the bag. We really need to, as a community, start showing that as Black men, there are successes that come outside of money. If you have a daughter, are you the example of the person you want your daughter to marry?
Come on, now you talk about principle now. You went away from currency to now principle. Okay.
But you know what I'm saying? There's a difference. Yeah. So we can have jerks like a Candace Owens and a Jason Whitlock saying, and then we throw our hands in the air and say, oh, here they go again. Well, yeah, they're assholes. But that doesn't mean that that part of what they're saying is true. We need to do a better job. So if you're an athlete, yeah, do drives, do all that. If you're a business person, do drives, do all that. Wells Fargo, when I worked there forever, they used to Habitat for Humanity, do all that. That's great. You put a roof over someone's head. But did we really do a good job of then following up in our own community, saying there's a house over his head, we know that's a single mom living there with 3 kids. All 3 of her kids are sons. Are we just checking in to see, hey, are they going to school? Are they getting good grades? Are they staying away from the people that they need to stay away from? If you're not doing those things, you're right, Myron, it's just a tagline. And it's a way for corporations to truly make money. But we have to show those concerns. That's why I get upset when I flip on the news and I see my city and there's a 3-year-old kid shot, but all I see is crying. Why are we not pissed? Why are we not? And I know I was joking earlier about the snitch line, but why is someone not calling up saying, yo, that was whoever that shot that little girl? That's a cool snitch. That's not secretive snitch line, snitches get stitches. That's what you have to do. And so taglines are great. But I want to see not just our athletes, because that's unfair pressure just to put on them. But are we doing that from Wells Fargo? Are we doing that if we're a GM at Circle K? Where are we all doing that to come along? And what's sad is, and well, you call it sad, I guess, I look out and I see marches. Sometimes I see more educated, non-Black people saying things that we're not saying. I don't know if you guys heard that interview I played with Archie Bradley. Archie said, look, I don't know about the slogans and all that. I just know Black people have been systematically oppressed and I have an opportunity to speak up, so I'm doing it. To me, that means something. That's really saying something. So we have to, as a whole, sports, non-sports, we got to realize, yeah, it's cool to look, we're alphas. It's cool to wear them letters, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of cats that drop out because they don't want to do the work to get to wearing those letters. They don't want to put in that process of pledging and doing other stuff. They want the letters because letters are cool. Letters get you girls when you're in school. Letters look good. Put that black and gold on. Whoa.
Right.
But when it's time to put in the work, you don't want to do that. And so we got to make sure we're doing that with every part of Black Lives Matter. Not just stopping at one thing. We got to keep chopping the tree down.
Ooh, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm black, they can't keep me down. I'm black and black with a smile.